I'll do a check.
And we are live. Welcome everyone to our second session of this Metavisionaries live. And today we have Dr. Hilde with us. Wasim, would you like to introduce Hilde?
Doing that right now. Just going to do a quick check, and then we're ready to go.
Okay, cool. Oh, you have the nice, wonderful. Is that the AI box or the ice cube? And the ice cube, cool.
Two cubes that I can show, but there's no point.
Perfect. I think we're live, Wasim. Yes, we are live because I'm checking here on YouTube. Cool. So, who would you like to introduce, Hilde?
I would. Give me 1 second. So welcome everybody. This is going to be a fantastic live session. Going to enjoy this. So I want to welcome Hilde, who is my fun fact playing chess player, who I will let you know more details about. And that's the real work that we really get done. So Hilde, welcome. Hilde is from ICE Cubes and Space Apps, who are partners who are participating with us in creating this fantastic joint venture, which we will be talking about. So Hilde, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Wasim, Aisha, and Camilo. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hilde, for joining us. Wasim, if maybe you can share my screen, please, for a second.
There we go.
Nice. So, for all of you joining us today, we are going to talk about the ICE Cubes, which is basically a platform that allows you to do research on board the space station. And when we talk about research, it's any kind of research from space art to biology to space medicine. And Hilde is one of the persons or one of the people behind this amazing project development. Um, in the video, we can see ESA astronaut Alexander Gerst placing the ice cubes modules onto the ice cubes facility, which is, I am not mistaken, Hilde is in the Columbus module on board the ISS, correct? Correct, yes. And Hilde, tell us, my first question, how many cubes have you guys launched so far? So how many cubes have you sent to the ISS in these years?
Now that's already a tough question, but I think around 15, something of that nature. Yeah, something of that size, I would think.
Yeah, this is indeed an amazing development, and maybe let me start our conversation. If you can tell us a little bit more about for example, the Space Innovation Labs, which it's a new project that Space Application Services and Metavisionaries are working together to facilitate access to commercial um, any kind of entity institution for commercialization space. Like how you do that, and what's the link between the metaverse and these ice cubes with the ISS?
Yeah, absolutely. So Wasim was already telling that we're setting up a new joint venture called Metaspace, and the target is to create a global network of space innovation labs. We target to set 25 in a relatively short time all over the globe. These are physical hubs or physical centers on Earth that link directly to infrastructure in space and that are connected also to the metaverse. And so we think jointly we have a very strong asset that allows people to access space, but also access capacity building and new technologies, frontier technologies through the metaverse. And these three aspects combined between access to space and infrastructure in space, access to those physical locations on the globe, and access to the metaverse, we think is very synergetic and strong. um, to allow people to get access to all of that, to allow people to get access to this capacity building, and to allow people to get involved in space missions, in space data, and applications that come from that.
That's amazing. And I know that, for example, now that we talk about the Space Innovation Labs of the Global Network, um, I know that we have now six so far in different locations. I think in the next slide, Wasim, is the global network. We have the Netherlands, of course, in Norway. We have Brussels in Belgium. In Brussels. We are also having now in Malta. Soon we will have in CAUS, in the King Abdulaziz Science Institute for Science and Technology. We will also have one in Jeddah, in Qatar soon as well. Also in New York. So there are a lot of things happening with this. Wasim, let me ask this to you. How do you see the connection, the seamless connection between the metaverse and the ice cubes using the Space Innovation Lab as a ground set?
Right. So I think for me, it's two things. One, when we talk about access to space and frontier technologies, we know that this is something that is really going to define our lives in whether the way we learn or the way we work or how we apply these different modalities in various ways. But how do we get that across? For me, the metaverse is an environment where you can simulate the environment of space. You can bring in experts to come together and build projects. You can enhance the learning experience by bringing people from all around the world with learners from all around the world, and you can have this fantastic workpiece where you could be born in a country that may not have a space agency, but you could connect with people like Hilda or Jim Green or Tara Rutley or any of these fantastic people. That's one. And number two, imagine you can now simulate research. You can actually think about what you're going to implement in the physical world, but just trial it with industrial application metaverses like NVIDIA's, for example. So for me, you can learn from anywhere, you can collaborate from anywhere, and most importantly, you can try and test whatever you want to do in this environment, which then you can learn from and then think about doing in physical reality as such.
That's wonderful. And for example, something that I really love about the ice cubes, and everything regarding how involved art, and this is Ayesha's specialty with all the digital art. Hey Harry, welcome to the live. Um, Hi Felipe, Hilde. Um, I know that, for example, last year with the Oscar Cube from Belgium, you guys put an art. Wasim, if maybe you can share my screen, please, with the ice cube and this beautiful artwork. Hilde, can you please tell us a little bit more about like the concept behind it and why you guys decided alongside the Oscar Cube team to put art and specifically designing like the artwork for the external, just for the aesthetics of the cube, please?
Yeah, so I mean, we absolutely love the link and the intersection between art, space, science, and also artificial intelligence. And I know that's resonating with Aisha as well. So for sure, she will jump in as well. So we have been doing some art projects. For example, we in the one of the first cubes that we launched, and when I say cubes, these are little modules that are like these or a bit bigger that we launched to the space station. One of them was actually an art project, an interactive art project by a Mexican artist, Nahum, that he built together with the International Space University, by the way, one of our very important partners as well. And so it was fantastic. I thought it was an interactive art project where people on the ground could interact through their heart rate directly with a kaleidoscope in space that was changing its frequency with the heart rate of the people on the ground. So I thought it was really a nice idea to show how people could interact between ground and space through art, through an art setup. This one that you're showing, this is indeed a cube that was flown by a team from the university in Hasselt, together with some partners. And in fact, they did a competition around the design of the external housing of their cube, which I thought was really marvelous. In fact, I also, it was my preferred, but there were other very nice ones. You can look them up actually on their Facebook. They're still there. I checked today. And so they selected one and they laser etched it on their cube, which I think makes it really stand out. And again, passes this message of how art is intersected with space. And I mean, I think it's really it touches on boards, computer boards, but at the same time shows a kind of magnetic field. So I mean, it has a lot of elements that are combined in the design on the outside of their cube, which I really like.
And I see Professor Joseph Bohr connected. Hi, Professor Joseph. You will be on our live next week. And now that I see Professor Bohr popping up, Hilde, tell us a little bit more about the project Mallet, and maybe this is a question for you and Wasim, how we are going to launch digital art to the ISS with Project Mallet.
You want to get going, Wasim, or I get going? You're on mute.
Aisha, I'd love for you to come in here as well. So Project Mallet is designed with a team led by Professor Joseph Borg, who will be here next week talking about it. And it kind of relates to what we're trying to do with Space Innovation Labs. Now, as Hilde mentioned, our goal is to provide access to frontier technologies and innovation labs. And one of the things we do is highlight STEM and STEAM. So this experiment, Project Mallet, is specifically focused on patients with diabetes suffering from foot ulcers. And we're going to be looking at this fantastic, unique laboratory, which is microgravity in the ISS, and looking at what happens to bacteria in our microbiome for patients of suffering from that particular disease. And one of the things that we're also going to be able to do is send art and music to space to inspire and get people excited about STEM and STEAM and see, you know, that relationship. And Hilde, I got to ask you, Joseph's going to send his clone next week. With this environment, how does healthcare benefit from that space environment?
Yeah, indeed, the space environment that we have access to is really unique. So the fact that you don't need to deal with gravity, it allows to address certain research, certain R&D, certain applications that you cannot achieve on Earth. And we like to do that in different application areas, and health is one very strong one, because they're not having to deal with gravity has a lot of very beneficial consequences. For example, for cells that you can grow or culture under this environment, but also for proteins that you can crystallize and so on. And here in the Mallet project, they actually use this space environment to look at, as Wasim explained, this human skin microbiome samples and the genetics that they see from that. I absolutely love it, and I really see it as a great first example of how we want to work in this global network of space innovation labs. So this, in fact, the Malta Cube or Mallet Cube is the third one in a series that Professor Borg initiated. But I would dare to say that the third one is extra special because it represents a large international collaboration now. So there's Professor Borg in Malta, there's US scientists involved, there's Saudi scientists involved, there's UK scientists involved. Also, the samples are actually international samples, so they come from different populations, which makes it scientifically even more interesting because you can compare between different populations. Wasim mentioned that it carries along art project, digital art that will be streamed. And I don't know if we can already mention that, but in fact, the operations on board will be done by the UAE astronaut that launched today, for which big congrats also for the UAE and the Arab world. I think it's fantastic. And I think that really, for me, expresses what we want to do through this global network of space innovation labs. So we want to launch missions to space, do research in space that benefit all of these different labs. And so people from the different labs can get access to the samples, can get access to the data, can get access to the artwork generated. We share, how the operations are done, and it becomes really a multi-faceted, multi-national, truly collaborative project. And this little cube, you were showing it in the metaverse version. It's really, it's a bit bigger than the one I have here, but it's still a small cube, and it carries now a gigantic load in terms of the relevance, the international aspects, the collaboration around it, the samples, the scientific value, the artistic value. So it's really, I think, a fantastic first example of how we want to achieve those goals also through this network of space innovation labs and the link to the metaverse as well.
Wasim, would you like to mention something about like our model here in the lecture domain, our metaverse environment?
Yeah, sure. So this we talked about how the metaverse links. Well, this is a model of what the cube looks like and what the inside of that cube looks like, where these tissue samples are going to sit. And one of the things we're going to be doing is teaching through these space innovation labs and the metaship is how you create these cubes. What is the engineering process behind it? What is the science that goes in there? What does that look like? And you can simulate it in a virtual environment, put it together before we finally send it to the space station, as you're saying, seeing right now. Aisha, you had a question to follow up because
Yeah.
this box will also be used in an AI setting as well.
Yeah, I actually had a question from Dr. Hilde because Dr. Hilde, you talked about such fascinating things, and especially your example with the art project with Kaleidoscope. And given the era that we're now moving in, which is like related to AI, art, and so on, so what do you think with the microgravity that we have and the experiments that you've been sending to ISS? How can like better collaborate with AI, and what are the challenges in that specific domain? Keeping in mind the artists, innovators, what are the projects that we can do with that?
Yeah, so I think the microgravity environment is already fantastic as it is for research scopes. But now, if you bring in artificial intelligence in that mix, that brings it even to another level, both for the research aspects. So you can imagine, for example, this particular cube that you see here in the metaverse. So we do have artificial intelligence capability on board. So you can imagine that images or data from that cube go directly into the artificial intelligence that processes the data, the images, and spits out some response and makes it react. And so you can think of concepts like, for example, a greenhouse. So we actually launched a greenhouse as one of our first cubes as well. So you can imagine plants growing in space, but you can have the artificial intelligence following along and deciding based on the images from those plants by itself when these plants may need nutrition or may need water and so on. So that all becomes possible through AI, making that part of the bigger picture. But also here in what Camilo was showing in the whole metaverse, how we can use this AI, how we can use augmented reality, virtual reality, or mixed reality to go, as you were saying, to collaboratively design, to fast prototype certain concepts, to accelerate innovation. All of that is now possible through these new AI, AR, VR means, and through the metaverse joint environment, we can all access that. And also, specifically on the art side, the link of art and AI and generate art through AI. coming from space, it's really fantastic. It opens so many doors.
And other than the microgravity, what are the other factors that you think they directly affect the data that we send through these ice cubes and anything that we send through? And so, in the International Space Station, like what are the other elements that affect? Maybe the zero gravity is one element, right? So, are there any other that affect
Yeah,
the data?
absolutely. So there is indeed the microgravity, which I think is a very, very important and strong element. There's also the effect of radiation. So you have radiation hitting, even though the space station is at what we call low Earth orbit, so relatively close by the Earth, you still have a quite increased radiation level. In fact, with the artificial intelligence that we have on board, we started a challenge that we set up in Southeast Asia with a number of partners for student teams. And the winning student team actually came up with artificial intelligence that allows to predict what is called single event upsets. So these are when radiation hits a computer board, it can actually change a zero in a one or a one in a zero, and it can lead to upsets. And in fact, they have thought of a way, machine learning way, that allows to predict these single event upsets, which are really, making a lot of people upset in the space environment because it disturbs your computer, it disturbs your machines. So it's a fantastic example of how artificial intelligence, which in all honesty has been around for quite a while, but now we're really coming to a level where it's integrated into research, integrated into operational systems, and that's truly exciting. I think that we are reaching that point.
But when we talk about AI, like how fast is the machine learning going hand in hand? Because obviously, when it comes to these space, everything is a bit more complicated, right? Because we don't have much reach to the area as yet. But then, how is machine learning coping to that? Or do you think there's still a lot of work that is needed in that area, like, according to your experience?
Oh, for sure, there's still a lot of work needed, but it's all coming together. So it allows to accelerate and skip stages now that we would not have been able before. And so, for sure, for the machine learning, you need to, you need to learn, the machine needs to learn. So you need to teach it, feed it with data that you gather, and so on. But all of that, we see is accelerating really quite a lot, and so yeah, it becomes really exciting. Uh, or these are exciting times as we speak now. So for sure, still a lot to be done, but it's happening
Definitely.
while we speak.
Hilda, we summarized the concepts of, for example, how AI is used on the space station. We've talked about things like how art and creativity will be involved in some of the activities we're doing. But as much as I know we constantly get this question. First of all, why space? And I know we talk about it enough, but I don't think it's talked about enough. So why space? Why is it a national matter? And why should communities really be involved in the importance of it?
Yeah, I think, the why space, there's different chapters to address. For me, in first instance, if you ask me personally why space, well, it's humankind's nature. It's humankind's nature to explore. So we want to go out and find out. And I personally, I'm a scientist from background, so I love the idea that we don't know everything and that every day we're pushing the frontiers a tiny bit, and that's exactly what we go and do in space. So for me, that's chapter number two. Chapter number one, sorry. Chapter number two, I think, is also a chapter that's not talked enough about, and that is the gigantic benefit for Earth from space. And so, what we are setting up with the global network of space innovation labs and this joint venture Metaspace also really addresses this chapter too. Like, okay, which applications can come out of space, can benefit from space? And especially, we were touching already on the whole health related applications. I think it's gigantic. It has so much potential to use this environment of space also for the benefit of us here on Earth. But also, and that's yet another chapter we haven't touched on, but the whole Earth observation data, remote sensing data. There is so much data being generated, and we should really leverage and optimize the use of that data to a maximum, and use that data for, I mean, assessing water on Earth, assessing the land on Earth, species. All of that data is existing as of today, and it can actually be processed, it can be visualized, and can be made accessible for people to make use of that. And so I think investing in space, or yeah, why is it a national matter? I think it's really something where people and nations want to get involved. I mean, because it's there for the exploration of humankind, but also for the applications potential for us here on Earth.
And
Hilde,
sorry, go on, Camilo.
thank you, Wasim. Let me ask you this. We talk about AI, we talk about metaverse, and we talk about how space, AI, and metaverse are so important, especially space for the, let's say, the future of human as a species, right? But so far, we need to put it a little bit more grounded. And some people would like to say, okay, how can we access that? Meaning, how can institutions, par- parents, students, the current generation, the current workforce can get involved on this, and more directly, how can, for example, the current workforce get involved with the space innovation labs?
Yeah, and that's entirely what we want to target by setting up this network of space innovation labs, by linking it to the metaverse, to make it accessible for anybody, for any individual, for any agency, for any company, and to make them part of this whole setup that allows for capacity building, that allows for people to acquire new skills through the metaverse by talking to, I mean, Wasim mentioned already Dr. Jim Green, that is part and doing a lot of those sessions, Dr. Tara Rodley, and so on. These are, I mean, I don't know if Jim appreciates if we mention the decades of space work he has been doing, but it's a lot of decades. So it's fantastic if that all becomes accessible for people on an individual basis. They can basically subscribe, they can reach out, they can collaborate through the setup of the Space Innovation Labs, through accessing the metaverse, and all become part of this. Actually, through a relatively or a low threshold way of the metaverse that is also very immersive, where they can interact with people from the other side of the world at ease. So, and maybe Wasim, you want to say a bit more on the immersive and social nature of the metaverse environment for these educational and capacity building possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, this is an example of where you're able to learn, specific skills, utilizing virtual reality, augmented reality is going to play a part, like how to use a robotic arm or how you train astronauts. I mean, these are just some of the skills that we're looking at that we're really going to be able to revolutionize. The fact that you can have experts, because I think it's one of the key things is all about speed and how quickly you can bring that together. And I think one of the key things is, you know, let's talk about advanced spacecraft or their creation. The fact that someone like Jim Adams, sitting in the US, can come in and show us how that whole process comes together in VR and how incredible that is. I think that's the magic. It is the ability to connect and collaborate anywhere, anytime with any expert without having to catch a flight. And that link to our physical lab capacity is what makes this incredible.
Here, for example, what you are showing, Wasim, is basically one of the applications on how we can, for example, learn robotics. In this specific example, space robotics, using the metaverse, which is a great tool because when I was studying, like one of my difficult classes was in understanding the rotations, the matrices, like the points of rotation for the robots. So I think this is a great tool, of course, for learning. And now that we put it into space, like that's like the next level. Um, I see what roles do sports, entertainment, creativity play in space and these innovation labs. Wow. Well, I think that's a question for Wasim or Ayesha.
Well, Hilda, you have a media set on the space station. Uh, what does that media set do? The fact that these space innovation labs are going to be connected to this media set, and then we can talk about if you're an artist or a musician, how you can get involved. For example, how you can learn skills like AI, and even some of the coding and AI events you've done, Hilda, for 6 year olds and so on. So I'll let you take that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have this media set on board again of the European in the European module currently. It might move at some point. It
Mhm.
allows to interact actually with the crew members that are on board of the space station. We started using it during the very first fully commercial mission to the space station that was done by a US company called Axiom, Axiom One. And so we used it during that week for 42 events, interacting with press, interacting with students, interacting with artists. It has a lot of potential in the direction of that question. Like we can use it to interact with people on the ground, with people from the entertainment sector that can ask questions. Maybe some of you have seen the conversation between footballer Mbappe that you probably all know.
I think Wasim has that video somewhere. Maybe we can show it.
Yeah, and the French astronaut Thomas Pesquet, and they had a very nice conversation on how their two functions or professions, how they relate and what they have in common. I thought it was very inspirational. I think it's very important to come to that question to link space and access to space also with entertainment, with sports, with all of that, because it makes it accessible. It allows people to engage, to relate to it, and so that they see what is the application back to Earth, but also how these people, how it can serve as an inspiration, what commonalities there are, and also all of the different aspects of roles and jobs that do relate to space, because people often think of space as being these niche environments where we only need engineers and scientists. But I think that's far from the truth, has never been the truth, but as of today, it's further from the truth than ever, because we do need designers, we do need artists, we do need all of these people, visionary thinkers, technology developers, innovators, entrepreneurs. They're all connected to space, and we all need them in this space ecosystem to really leverage that space environment up to the maximum.
I want to bring this comment from Alison in regards to NVIDIA. When I grew up playing games, and when you looked at your graphics cards, and NVIDIA's name always came up. Recently, we've had a great, phenomenal conversation with our folks at NVIDIA about the industrial application for the Omniverse. And interestingly, we already use AI box by NVIDIA on the space station. Hilda, tell us, and the reason why I mentioned that is you think gaming and what gaming has a role in terms of space and innovation. I mean, there is more dots connected than you think. So tell us about the AI box from NVIDIA you're currently using, and some of the things which I have no shame in saying, hey, NVIDIA's Omniverse is phenomenal. The
Mhm.
industrial application is phenomenal.
I
So,
mean,
so
Nvidia with the Omniverse have now like the BMW digital twin uh, manufacturing facilities just to set up like the manufacturing line to like to prove processes where they should put the technicians, like just to improve it. Like that's a great industrial application for the metaverse in the manufacturing of automotives.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, I mean, indeed, as Wasim was saying, we have this artificial intelligence box. It's based on NVIDIA Jetson boards. And so, yeah, I mentioned that we are seeing so much usage of artificial intelligence on board for research, but also, I mean, we're coming to a time where artificial intelligence will be built into technologies for space operations, for health applications, um, for, I mean, using AI for crew health, for example. And so, yeah, as Wasim was saying, we had this amazing visit to NVIDIA where we got to see some of their very strong assets and how it's all built on research. So they stole my heart there, of course. I mean, the modeling they can do is amazing. For example, you can imagine if you want to do fluid or material research in the space environment that allows to achieve results that you cannot make on Earth. For example, you can melt alloys in space to deduce data for material manufacturing purposes. And if you can model that in an AI environment, I mean, the results you can obtain are mind blowing, I think. But also in terms of the whole setup of, yeah, you mentioned digital twins. I mean, I think, I mean, there's fantastic videos of what you mentioned. I mean, the factories, digital twins, but also building a digital twin of these labs that we are setting up, these space innovation labs network, and to create digital twins and to be able to collaboratively
Maybe
design.
Wasim can share my screen while I showing the in our digital twin of one of our space innovation labs in the metaverse, please. While you explain it, Hilde.
Yeah, so then we can go and design collaboratively through these I mean, in this case, possibly NVIDIA based setups. And that's really, I think it's, I mean, mind blowing how people can connect to that, and how they can build on these capabilities, whether that's for research, for design and development, for technologies, for educational purposes. I think that, I mean, these possibilities are endless.
And also, for example, while the lab loads in my computer, we are a Metavisionaries. We are actually working on creating a digital twin of one of the faculties of Qatar University. So imagine it's like not only for manufacturing, not only for research in this specific case, but also for education. We are creating like digital twins of universities. Like now, imagine like having like I don't know entire constellation of satellites, a digital twin, and then model the processes, model the single events that we were talking earlier. Like the possibilities are endless. Wasim, if you can share again my screen, please. I want to show the audience the digital twin of our space innovation lab. So this is how it looks. Hilde, would you like to describe it?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, one initial setup of what the Space Innovation Lab can look like. So it has different elements, and you can walk through it actually. So there's an element where engineering, design, and development can happen collaboratively. And this, where you now are, is the operational center.
Yeah.
Where we can actually connect operationally. You go to the engineering.
Yeah, this is engineering, and now since you were mentioning it, and now let's go back to the control room.
Yep. So we do have our own control center in Brussels, from where we command our facility on board the space station. But in fact, all of the people that actually launch a cube like this here, they can actually, from their lab or from their home even, they can connect operationally to their module in space, and they can send commands through an operational setup that they can install themselves, that looks actually like the one that you're showing, Camilo. For example, Professor Borch has this type of setup with Space Omics, the company that he recently set up. They have this setup operational installed so that they can send commands and see the data and the images that are coming from space directly. And so we want to have here a digital twin where we can also go in, also operationally look at things and how they can work, and we can test up front and again collaboratively design and develop.
One
Hilde,
question. Sorry,
yes,
can
please,
I?
yes, no, go ahead. Please, please, please.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dr. Hilda, I just had a question regarding the AR and VR. So we've talked about AI, we've talked about metaverse and how it all connects with the innovation labs. But whoever is interested in these technologies, which we don't see much at the moment, but AR and VR is something that can really help us understanding the fluid dynamics, understanding how things operate in space. So with the media sets, do you have any use cases that we can discuss here just for the people who really want to study these things, the students who really want to look into this as a career? So do you have any examples of that, or maybe experiments that you can share with us?
Sure. I mean, so one, I mentioned this example of materials, for example, or fluids, where you can actually model that also based on AR, VR capabilities, and that you can research both in space and on Earth. We're also discussing, like, I mean, I mentioned protein crystallization, for example, which is actually also very, the space environment is very beneficial. When you do that in space, you get crystals that are much larger and of a better structure than when you crystallize the same proteins in an Earth environment. And so imagine that you can model that process as well, and actually go into those aspects. I think it's phenomenal. But also, yeah, I think we were touching on the whole AR and VR for more operational skills or operational testing. I mean, the video that Camilo showed with the robotics and the exoskeleton that is used actually also for space-based technology testing, and you can model that again through AR and VR. I mean, it's fantastic. And then to make that reachable for educational goals as well, and accessible, I think, yeah, that's absolutely
Wow.
great.
Does it have
Um,
a connection with 3D printing or spacesuit design or something of that sort, just for anyone who's like myself interested in that field?
No, absolutely. I mean, 3D printing in a space environment is super interesting. Huh? I think, I mean, there's quite some ideas. I mean, we use a lot of 3D printing for these modules that we actually launch. There's a lot of 3D printing involved, but also the whole idea of printing 3D printing assets in space, and to bring or to use resources, what is called in situ. So to use resources that you find in space and to actually 3D print from that, I think is very interesting. And then you touch also on, I mean, spacesuit textiles and all of that. Yeah, it's also very interesting for and in a space environment, how to get there. And also the whole area of biomanufacturing, I think, is super interesting as well, like how we can use the environment of space to manufacture certain things, whether that's manufacturing in the terms of materials or manufacturing of biomanufacturing. I mean, people talking about 3D bioprinting of organs, for example, for the future, but also how this can be relevant for biomanufacturing in space. I mean, like, can we
Yeah.
print in the future the food of our astronauts? Can we do cellular meat production in a space environment? Is super interesting fields of research, of application. So yeah, Alison is saying absolutely 3D printing for new habitats with robots and so on. So yeah, that's
for
all
ISRU,
very
You
that's the
know,
key.
one of the things Alison mentioned, and also when we were out there with the guys from NVIDIA, we are actually doing the first team project with the International Space University, us, Metaspace, and the ISU in Brazil, led by Dr. Jim Green, who was the former chief scientist of NASA. This is going to be the first team project utilizing metaverse and for space applications. So we're going to have a team of students who are going to be led. In fact, Camilo, you're going to be leading some of this, where they're going to have to find solutions utilizing the metaverse for space applications. And one of the things that we're looking at is habitats and environments, what we can build and model in the metaverse, like settling on the moon or on Mars. And why this is important for the Earth itself is how do you manage those harsh environments, what we can learn and apply on the Earth itself for the harsh environments that we're currently going to be seeing with climate change. Hilda, what do you think?
That I should unmute. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I mean, space is a harsh environment. We need to understand how we can evolve and how we can build and how we can get there, how we can use this environment, but also how we can withstand this environment. And we need to, again, not only apply that for space exploration, but indeed also apply that for here on Earth, as you said. I'm thinking also about everything that relates to plants, for example. I mean, to learn like how when we grow them in a space environment, what it can learn us for stressors here on Earth, and to grow certain, I mean, for example, micro greens, like in desert environments, for example. There's an awful lot that we can learn in space research also for those scopes. And I think the whole vertical, let's say, I mean, we mentioned health, but the other very important vertical, I would say, is everything that relates to sustainability and what we can learn from space research, but also space data. I mean, we talked about Earth observation data, remote sensing data, how it can help us and is already helping us in the whole climate change and sustainability, how we can monitor water, land quality, and so on. Yeah, I think it will only become more and more important, and we should
Hilde, now
optimize.
that you mentioned all of these careers, like maybe the next question would be like, what advice would you give to young people interested in pursuing a career in space science and technology, and of course the keeping in mind the intersection between AI and microgravity, since that's like basically the link that we're discussing here.
Yeah, advice. I always don't feel well placed to give advice. But I mean, the advice that you would hear and that I do relate a lot to is follow your dream. I mean, really listen to your heart, what your heart tells you, that touches you, and know that space is very close to you. I mean, yesterday evening I was taking my son to a swimming lesson. We came out and we saw Venus and Jupiter next to each other, which at the moment is very exceptional. I mean, whenever you talk to kids and you show them these type of things, it's, I mean, you see their eyes glim and glow. But we need to keep on passing that message that it's not something for which they need to obtain 17 degrees and that is very far away from them. No, it's really reachable. I mean, when we were in Dubai a couple of weeks, I don't remember why, because all of the days go in and out with Wasim. We were in Dubai. We met this fantastic Kuwait lady, very young and full of inspiration, and she brought the first Kuwaiti space cubes, let's say, to space. So, and I think she was really an inspiration for us. And we said afterwards, she probably doesn't realize how much of an inspiration she is, and how much she brings, I mean, to her country, to her fellow students, fellow kids. I think it's so valuable when they, I mean, when they follow their dreams and they believe that they can actually implement, because they can actually implement.
Mhm.
So yeah, that I think for me would be follow your dream and know that it's out there for you. You can get it at your fingertips, and that's also what we want to bring with the network of space innovation labs and the MetaSpace metaverse. Is really bring
And
it to kids.
pursuing a space dream doesn't mean that you have to be an engineer per se. You can
Yeah.
be a medical doctor. You can even be a football player. Maybe Wasim wants to share my screen. last year for the FIFA preparations, Luis Figo teamed up with Mastercard basically to break a world record, let's say this way, a Guinness record to play football in microgravity. So now you don't even need to pursue a career in science. You just have to show your passion and love for space and pursue it. Here
Yeah.
you can see like these football players, Luis Figo playing football in microgravity. I mean, how cool is that? Like how how all these things are getting interconnected. And talking about the medical sciences, it's like there are a lot of things happening for medical research, because if we take project malady into consideration, it's like how you do research in space for pursuing a better treatment for the ulcers that you get of this disease. So there is a million of things, gazillion of things. So I think like one of the conclusions that we can get out of this fruitful and amazing discussion over the last 50 minutes is like space is for everyone. Space is for anywhere, right? And no matter the career that you pursue, no matter what your passion is, there is always an application in a space for you. Either medical research. Now that I remember, we have the medicines in space, executive space course in Oxford. So for all those pharmaceutical people somehow eager to learn more about the space medicine, please join us in Oxford in November this year. We will have the Executive Space course in partnership with the International Space University, where we will be learning about more about pharmaceuticals, medical treatments, and stuff like that. Now you see like all these like amazing sports being played in space, like art. Ayesha can tell you more about the art. So yeah, that I think is great all happening in space nowadays.
The cooks, we need to make food in space.
Yes, I wanna be the first chef in space.
Yeah, I met Aisha through all the environment of space. I mean, she has a fantastic background of artist who's touching on textile and so on. I mean, we met here through
Yeah.
this environment. So I absolutely think what you're saying, Camilo, is absolutely true. That all of these links to space, and people should really see how it allows them to become part of this whole ecosystem around space, and play their role that is suited for them.
Indeed. Ayesha, any final remarks from your side?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that this entire conversation and why we're doing these sessions, the entire idea is that the parents, students, researchers, whoever is watching, that they feel that this conversation is relevant to you. Because, obviously Hilda is an expert in this field, and that's why we have her, giving us idea about each and every different kinds of, fields that we discussed today. But the entire idea is to kind of open this dialogue to everyone, and that's what Camila said, that the space is for everyone. Every culture should be welcome there. We're still figuring out what that would look like for us as spacelings in the future, but I think that we can start shaping it today as artists, as innovators. We can imagine it, and I think that's what I would like to for everyone to think about. These are the last words. Everyone should think about how they can make the space, a better space for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And reach out. I mean, if you want to, if you don't know how you relate and you want to find out, well, reach out. I think all of us, you can reach us either through LinkedIn or whatever other
Absolutely.
means. We're
Absolutely. You
happy
can reach out
to.
to us. Guys, if you don't ask, your answer will always be no. So go for the yes.
So I think what I'm going to do is just summarize. Firstly, we're going to be at the GTC keynote on March the 21st, Alison. So really looking forward to that. We're going to spread the word. Now, we've talked about what we're doing, Metaspace, Metavisionaries, ICE Cubes. Our goal is very simple. This is the age where science, creativity, and entrepreneurship intersect. And if they're intersecting at a pace which is not just exponential, but it's super rapid. So we've come up with a solution where we believe by having access to frontier technology, having access to space, means that you get to really be part of that conversation and shape that conversation. And as a result of that, we're building this network of space innovation labs. These are physical innovation centers directly connected to the ISS, courtesy of Hilda Space Apps and Ice Cubes. So not only do you get to go in there and have direct access to the space environment, we are also connecting it with our metaversity or metaverse environment, which means you can be born in Rwanda, not have a space agency, still have access to space, learn at skills at the same time. Like we talked about some of the things like artificial intelligence, we talked about 3D printing. You know, you look at things like the metaverse and omniverse, the industry. So those who are thinking, okay, we get the education part, but I'm a business. Well, when it comes to metaverse and we look at concepts like the omniverse that we've seen with nvidia, we're not just shouting it out for no reason. The physics behind the fact that you can look at the materials in within the physics engine and know, for example, what a certain element will do in that environment. This is what we're creating. We're very excited to announce, so far we have 8 space innovation labs. We're going to be looking forward to announcing this network next week with some wonderful, wonderful collaborators. Kaust is going to be one of our destinations in Saudi, where we're really looking forward to doing some great work out there. So with that, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the live. Camilo, Aisha, thank you. You were all brilliant. And for schools and institutions, if you're thinking about how to get involved in terms of the learning environment and working with these advanced skills, reach out to us. If you're a business and thinking, okay, how do I use Earth observation? How do I use remote sensing? How do I get that strategic edge? Reach out to us. And most importantly, Hilda, I know I drive you crazy, but that's my job. You're absolutely amazing. Thank
Well,
you so
you don't
much.
only drive Hilde crazy.
So, Hilda, we're going to let you have the last words. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure, and I love the synergetic craziness because that's what we should set out to do all together. I think that's what drives us as humankind to get further into all of this. It's a bit of craziness and a bit of spice and a bit of everything on top of that. So if we can get it there and bring all of these forces together, I absolutely love it. So thank you very much, Wasim, Aisha,
Thank
and
you, Hilde, for
stage.
accepting our last minute call to join us today in our live. And everybody, keep tuned for our next lives. We're gonna keep having these conversations every Tuesday and Thursday. We have a lot of exciting things to share with you and a lot of amazing guests. So stay tuned. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.